The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to CanaryCryNewsTalk.
You're listening to CanaryCryNewsTalk. Today is September 18th, 2019, episode 157, Mutant, Mosquito, Mishap, and NanoBot Mind Control. My name's Basil.
And this is Gonz. Welcome to the podcast where we talk about other news with Canary Cry views.
That's right, Gonz, and you know what? It's a good week. I'm feeling good this week.
Yeah, it's a good week. We got a lot of good stories. And we had
this cat just groomed me.
That's fantastic. We also had Amy, who's a patron. She let us know with a very brief message to us. I heart Flippy.
Yay! We all heart Flippy here. Thank you so much, Amy, for reaffirming my own feelings about Flippy. And you know what? In time, we will all learn to love Flippy.
We will be forced.
Speaking of which, it's time for this week's Flippy Update.
Flippy Update.
Do you want fries with that?
That's right. We're going to make it a short one today, but today on ZDNet.com, we have cage-free robots are now doing industry's heavy lifting. At the China International Industry Fair trade show in Shanghai this morning, Universal Robots is displaying a brand new collaborative robot capable of lifting 35-pound payload. That may not sound like much, but it signals a major trend in the automation industry and an important milestone in the way humans and robots work together, operating alongside people and outside cages. Collaborative robots, often just called cobots.
Yeah.
Are now performing manufacturing tasks that were previously the domain of caged-off industrial machines. Not going to read the whole thing, but the basic thing to take away from this is the robots are cageless. Cage-free robots, they are creating these robotic arms to work in the manufacturing industry now, where before, to avoid accidents and a robot overlord situation, they had to put these robots in cages because they wouldn't stop if people got in the way. They would just throw them into the manufacturing line and package them up as some sort of doodad. But now, with all sorts of fun new sensors and things like that, they hope that these robots will not accidentally add some human components into the manufacturing process. And the reason I wanted to pick out this one, we had a couple different possible Flippy updates today, but it is the continued emergence of this term cobots. Yeah. We've mentioned it before. We saw it kind of popping up maybe about a year ago, but now I'm seeing it around more and more. And this is just, it's the PR, it's the branding of robots into cobots that are supposed to make them more friendly. We're supposed to associate them with coworkers now. And it's been the industry's strategy to calm the fears of robots taking our jobs, that they're just here to help out. And you know what? That makes sense. If I was a CEO, sure, I would get a robot's butler for every employee that costs like 3 times their yearly salary just to help them out. No need to get rid of the humans.
You know what really makes me feel uncomfortable about this story is the fact that they're cage-free, right? So
I know.
It's like Flippy listened to our podcast and started taking the idea of thinking outside the cage literally. And we failed, Basil. We might have failed with the whole... I know.
Flippy's thinking outside the cage. Flippy, get back in the cage.
Get back in the cage, buddy.
You're endangering us all. So there you go.
Canaries in a cage.
Very good. And Gonz, I wanted to give you just real quick. I didn't have any reason to put this on the show or any place, but I've got a very important headline that I want to read, and then we'll just move on.
Fantastic.
And that is from WBIR.com. Headline reads, CDC warns people not to kiss chickens. That's right. You heard it here first, people. Stop kissing your chickens on their little chicken lips.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to tell you. It's chaos. It's a mess. I tried to tell you, but nobody wanted to listen. y'all hear me now?
Do y'all hear me now?
Well, they better.
You gonna give us this update?
Yeah, futurism.com. We've talked about the gene-hacked mosquitoes before, but now...
Yes, for those who don't remember, the plan was to GMO-itize, to genetically modified mosquitoes, set them out in the wild, and hopefully this genetic modification would have sterilized all the other mosquitoes and rid us of that plague once and for all.
Right, and carrying all the diseases and whatnot. So,
yeah.
Futurism.com, gene-hacking mosquitoes to be infertile backfired spectacularly.
Ooh.
Yeah. On its surface, the plan was simple. Gene hack mosquitoes so their offspring immediately die, mix them with disease-spreading bugs in the wild, and watch the population drop off. Unfortunately, it didn't quite pan out. The genetically altered mosquitoes did mix with the wild population, and for a brief period, the number of mosquitoes in Jacobino, Brazil did plummet. Jacobino, according to research published in Nature Scientific Reports last week. But 18 months later, the population bounced right back up, New Atlantis reports. And even worse, the new genetic hybrids may be even more resilient to future attempts to quell their numbers. So they just got stronger.
Exactly what we said would happen.
I know, that's pretty much what we outlined. Like, hey, what if they, just learn how to adapt to that and just, become even more resistant to these artificial types of, changes and stuff that would trying to kill off the population.
Finds a way, Gons.
Yeah. Well, they blame, global climate change as part of the reason why diseases like Zika, dengue, and malaria keep spreading with the mosquitoes. And then playing God, in Brazil, the wild mosquitoes mated with the gene-hacked population and created a new sort of genetic hybrid that's more robust than the wild bugs were. While the new variant isn't inherently dangerous, or at least not additionally so, the scientists behind the project say they don't fully understand how things will change for future generations. Quote, "It is the unanticipated outcome that is concerning," Powell told the New Atlantis.
No kidding.
Yeah, no duh. Come on.
Yeah, if I was a scientist who did this, I mean, first of all, you gotta know that they were like, well, what if this doesn't work? There's one scientist on the team who was like, I don't know about this, guys. I really don't know about this. This seems like it could backfire pretty good. And they're like, no, come on. We're gods. We can just do whatever we've taken the proper precautions. And now they're all just sitting in a room, and that one scientist has the smuggest look on his face. And I applaud you, sir.
Good job. Nice illustration of a hypothetical situation in the back room there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're moving right along today, Gons. This is good. We're making good time.
Yep.
And that's good because we got a couple of big stories here. Gons.
Yep.
Are you ready to become cyborg?
Are you ready to become cyborg?
That's right. NBCSanDiego.com. This one is kind of down in your area there, Gons.
Yep.
Headline reads, U.S. Marine combat vet talks of Agent Orange, nanobots, head injuries, PTSD in murder trial. A U.S. Marine combat veteran who told police that he left his home 2 years ago hunting for someone to kill testified in his own defense Tuesday, describing a secret government agency, quote, Agent Orange. Nanobots used on Marines as mind control, multiple head injuries, and his treatment for PTSD through Veterans Affairs. Mikhail Schmidt, 33, is accused of stabbing to death construction worker Jacob Bravo, 27, at an Oceanside construction job site in March 2017. The men had not met prior to the attack. He told jurors Agent Orange, a counter-terrorist government agency, hired him in the hours before the killing and directed him to select Bravo as a target. Quote, that night, Agent Orange, they went and activated me, he said, discussing nanobots that he believes were injected in him during boot camp and that can perform mind control. Schmidt testifies the day after jurors saw a video in which he told law enforcement that he, quote, craved the taste of blood before the attack. Quote, I needed it. Schmidt can be heard in the video recorded after his arrest. On the stand, Schmidt denied there was any truth to that statement and admitted he's been kicking himself for 2 years for saying that to a detective. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah, definitely not a
That's
good
the
look.
kind of thing you can't go back on. If you're going to pull the NanoBot mind control story, you got to stick with it.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Well, I
Quote,
mean, I think he came up with that afterwards, right? He didn't, but at the time when he said it, but anyway, go on.
yeah. In my head, it still doesn't feel like this whole thing was real. It still doesn't feel real, he testified. Quote, so I said the first thing that came to my head was, want to taste blood again, which you hear in a Rambo movie or something. Jurors heard Schmidt describe his job as a reconnaissance sniper in the U.S. Marine Corps after he graduated high school and had spent some time in community college. He was stationed in Okinawa and then deployed to Iraq for several months, where he re-enlisted in 2008. Quote, I was lead Humvee and we hit an IED and I was knocked unconscious, he said. Also, during that deployment in 2008, we were doing more jump operations during training in Iraq, and my parachute failed to open. He said his backup parachute opened too late and he struck a building. I was knocked out again. Man, this guy really had a rough time of it.
Yeah.
He recalled several traumatic events during his military service, including a sniper assignment that ultimately involved a child in Iraq and searching for bodies after a tsunami in Southeast Asia. His last assignment was as a Marine combat instructor with the Infantry Training Battalion West at Camp Pendleton. He was honorably discharged in August 2013 as a staff sergeant E6 after he had a, quote, falling out with his chain of command, he said. He began going to the VA in 2014, and he was diagnosed with PTSD and listed as 80% disabled, Schmidt testified. A neurologist also testified Tuesday, telling jurors about a scan of the defendant's brain that showed abnormalities consistent with both PTSD and alcoholism. In cross-examination, prosecutors pointed out several times that Schmidt failed to tell the truth to military officials or law enforcement authorities. They also asked the defendant to demonstrate how he killed Jacob Bravo. Nicknamed the Hammer, as a linebacker in high school, Schmidt told the jurors that he had a lot of concussions while playing football. Detectives investigating Bravo's killings were led to Schmidt. Listen to this. After he told his supervisor about the killing at the triathlon training and gear shop, where Schmidt worked at the time, according to prosecutors. That conversation is one Schmidt told police he regrets. The dude basically got away with it and just couldn't not tell somebody.
Yeah.
He says here, that was my biggest downfall, he told detectives. I needed recognition.
That's really interesting.
I know. I'm just gonna blast through this whole thing and then we can talk about it.
Yeah.
In a video showing Schmidt alone in an interrogation room, he initially appeared restless, looking in the camera and bursting into laughter. During questioning, he cracked jokes and denied any involvement in the murder. Left alone during a break in questioning, Schmidt's entire demeanor shifted. He slumped over. As the video showed, he whispered, "I'm sorry," before saying, "I want it on the record. I love my wife. I love my dogs. I'm ready to talk. Let's do this," the video showed. Quote, "I don't know where it came from. I honestly don't know what came over me. I left my house with the intention to do harm," he added. The prosecution drew attention to Schmidt's lack of remorse for the victim during the video. In it, Schmidt told detectives he chose his victim at random. Quote, "There was no rhyme or reason behind why I chose him," said Schmidt in the video. "Lately, I've craved the taste of blood. I've needed it." While testifying, Schmidt also appeared to be restless and nervous. He smiled several times and even openly laughed while trying to answer questions about his work history. He admitted to alcohol and drug use after he left the U.S. Marine Corps and described disturbing thoughts of attempting to kill his wife and the world closing in. Quote, "It's like the world slows down and I start getting really bad tunnel vision. It starts getting smaller and smaller and smaller, looking through a little pinhole," he said. Testimony was stopped for a lunch break. Check back later today for updates on this developing story. No updates to be had at this point, except for in the comments here, somebody wants me to join their multi-level marketing scheme.
Good job, ABC or NBC.
Yeah. But very interesting. I mean, first of all, this poor guy.
This guy has
so much head trauma.
A lot of head trauma, whether on purpose or not. He definitely has like a character traits of DID and just multiple personality disorder. Just even if it's like not super heavy. Just reading this article suggests that he has these like personality compartmentalizations, and that alone can, cause people to do some pretty crazy things. So
totally. And PTSD is associated with, elevated levels of aggressiveness and things like that. The interesting thing, he mentioning this Agent Orange anti-terrorist organization. Have you ever heard of Agent Orange in the context of a government organization?
No.
Yeah, neither have I. But it's certainly the trauma. Let's, for a moment, just sort of explore his own description and, his reasoning and stuff. I mean, on its face, that much trauma, especially head trauma, does or would open someone up. I mean, there's parallels there between trauma-based mind control and things like that, where when somebody goes through enough trauma, especially like a physical head trauma, that type of thing, that it does open them up to manipulation.
Yeah.
For several different, in a lot of different ways. Now, mind control nanobots, I don't know if I've necessarily heard that theory of mind control, but we do know that the military, tests different technologies on soldiers without them knowing all the time. Well, so it's totally possible.
People who have suggested, anecdotally right now, sometimes with a little bit of evidence, L.A. Marzulli had that guy with a chip in his leg and stuff. So there's been stuff like that. But anecdotally, there's a lot of people that have come out and said they've been targeted by some of these, secret agency groups, whatever, that have technologies that can do that kind of thing. I don't know whether there are people who have suggested that nanobots already exist and this type of technology exists where you can be injected with nanobots or whatever and perhaps have your thoughts influenced or have voices in your head or whatever the case is. That tunnel vision he was talking about, those things could be induced, and perhaps he is part of a larger experiment that got loose a little bit, ran his mouth or something, and then, now he's in court, he's in the public eye a little bit. I mean, this isn't a national story, so it's not getting the kind of traction that, would wake everybody up or anything like that. But at the same time, he's out there now, so now they got to kind of discredit him as sort of a crazy person or whatever they got to do.
Well, yeah, whatever they got to do. But, it's interesting because...
Well, he did murder a guy, you know what I mean? Like... Certainly. At the end of the day, he did it, and one of the disturbing things about the news report from ABC, which doesn't mention the nanobots, by the way, the actual TV report, he demonstrates how he did it, which is kind of weird. Like he's standing up there and he's got like this dummy body, and he pull out his fake knife, and I don't know, it was just the whole thing is bizarre.
That is bizarre. Why would he agree?
I don't know. He's in court and he's like showing the whole jury, like, oh, this is how I did it, and I don't know, man.
His legal defense is obvious, some sort of maybe not insanity plea, but he claims that he lost the 5 hours. He doesn't remember anything from those 5 hours.
But then he explains how he did it. So how does he remember that? Is that, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, it's all coming back to him. But the fact that he got away with it more or less until he just went and blabbed and told people about it, which on its face is like a sign of mental instability and lots of other issues.
Yeah.
So I feel bad for this guy. I mean, if his story is true, he may just be a very convincing psychopath and meant to do it and just literally wanted to taste blood or whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, it all kind of comes, it's that fine line between, when we talk about a spiritual influence, then it's a very fine line between just a physical type of thing and a spiritual type of thing. So
call me crazy, Gons, but I don't doubt that he was dosed with nanobots.
I don't doubt it either. That's totally possible.
He was a ranger sniper.
Yeah.
And, we know that the government experiments with all sorts of different concoctions on soldiers. And one of them being, they very well could, maybe these nanobots are meant to target the empathy centers of the brain to take away, the hesitation before carrying out some sort of kill. And, the problem with that is it's convenient for the government when they are telling him who to get.
Right.
But when he gets back and released into the general population, and who knows, maybe he was told to target this guy. Well, I want to know more about this Bravo guy, the guy who got. I mean,
yeah, what was his deal?
There was information that he was a Russian agent or something. That might explain a little bit of it.
It doesn't mention how many people he had actually killed while on duty, right? I mean, obviously they don't say anything about that. No,
but they did allude to, some incidents that involved children and stuff like that.
Right.
These snipers. And especially when it comes to snipers, I mean...
You're removed from the...
You're removed from the consequences. Also, there's a big... there's a lot of weight put on not hesitating.
Right.
Because when you're sniping from a significant distance, the split second of hesitation could mean the difference between, hitting your target and not. So,
right.
But that's interesting. Yeah. The mainstream reporting of nanobots and mind control. Unfortunately, I'm not very optimistic about this guy's defense, but he may get off for some sort of mental thing.
Well, it's bad.
Not
PR.
Get off, but he would go to some sort of mental institution,
right, instead of prison. Well,
which I don't know if that's any better. You get free drugs in the mental institution.
Yeah. More mind control experiments on you, buddy. Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, poor guy.
Speaking of the beast system, beast system.
This is technologyreview.com. AI learned to use tools after nearly 500 million games of hide and seek.
No, they're learning.
Yeah, and
did you highlight specific stuff in this?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, because let me read the first paragraph and then stop real quick because it's kind of the foundation of how they even come up with these theories and how they're pushing it. So, in the early days of life on Earth, biological organisms were exceedingly simple. They were microscopic unicellular creatures with little to no ability to coordinate, yet billions of years of evolution through competition and natural selection led to the complex life forms we have today, as well as complex human intelligence. I mean, it just completely presupposes that, just no.
Well, of course.
Yeah, I mean, they have to. That's the entire foundation of how these types of systems are even being built. Researchers at OpenAI in San Francisco based for-profit AI research lab are now testing a hypothesis. If you can mimic that kind of competition in a virtual world, would it also give rise to much more sophisticated artificial intelligence? The experiment builds on two existing ideas in the field: multi-agent learning, the idea of placing multiple algorithms in competition or coordination to provoke emergent behaviors. And that's the key word I kind of want to focus in on, emergent behaviors. And reinforcement learning, the specific machine learning technique that learns to achieve a goal through trial and error. And it says DeepMind popularized the latter with its breakthrough program AlphaGo. We've talked about that before, beating the ancient Chinese board game Go, human player, I think the world champion. And then later on, it says here that they talk about a new research paper that OpenAI published and its initial results. And the research says here offers insight into OpenAI's dominant research strategy to dramatically scale existing AI techniques to see what properties emerge. There's that word again, emerge. It goes through the 6 phases of strategy. It's kind of technical there. But one of the things that I wanted to mention, at first, the researchers at OpenAI believed that this was the last phase of gameplay when they discovered that some of the tactics they were using was, they just kept repeating the same thing. So it was like, okay, maybe at 380 million game simulations, there's no more like strategies that this AI can learn. The Seekers once again developed a strategy to break into the hider's fort because they have this, sort of AI system, hide and seek.
We should mention that they have 2 sets of AI competing with one another, playing hide and seek in a virtual world. And so they wanted to see, do the hiders and the seekers develop new strategies on their own in order to win the game?
Right. So the Seekers once again developed a strategy to break into the hider's fort by using a locked ramp to climb onto an unlocked box, then surf their way on top of the box to the fort and over its walls, which is crazy. So it took 380 million simulations, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, let's try this other thing. And
well, the long and short of it is the AI they played hide and seek with regular rules for a while, and then the hiders started learning that they can move objects within the world, and they were sort of building little forts around them. And then the seekers learned that they can climb up on the walls and things like this. And these were all, organically generated strategies that the computers were figuring out in order to, beat the other team, which shows a very scary side of the AI, because especially in the game of hide and seek, you're watching these AIs play hide and seek and find each other. But in the real world, if we're trying to hide from the AI and they're learning how to find us, and we can't even hide in our little forts that we build, they're going to learn.
They're going to figure it out. Well, I know. That's the thing that's really interesting.
We're playing out the end of humanity with this hide and seek game.
It's like this little simulation of what's going to go down. But yeah, it's crazy because they keep using that word emerge, and I focus in on that word because what's emerging here, Basil? Like, how the lab coats here, the scientists think that it's just like a low-level form of consciousness. Oh, here we go. We finally, figured out this consciousness, because it is a black box. All the numbers and the calculations that connect an AI, you can feed one at a time, but then, when you start feeding certain information, looking for certain types of results, it's an
ongoing uneasiness in the AI space is, researchers don't know how the computers come to the conclusions that they come to.
Right. So, and now we're seeing it play out in little worlds, virtual worlds. I tend to think that what's happening eventually, maybe not this particular example, but eventually this is like a vehicle for the disembodied spirits, of ancient lore. It's just a place where they can just manifest into bodies.
Wow, jumping right into it.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, what's emerging, Basil? Is it just a brand new consciousness, a new life form?
I don't know. Whatever it is, I don't like it though.
That's what I'm saying. It's making, and they have to, the fact that they started with the whole presupposition that, hey, evolution and, theory of
Well, it turns into sort of a circular logic, which I think we should get a little bit more into in our extended report, Gons. We're going to finish talking about this story. For those who don't know, we have a Patreon page, patreon.com/CCNT. You can get another episode of Canary Cry News Talk every single week. And here's the thing, folks. We usually are pretty passive about letting you know about the Patreon page and supporting the show, but this show is entirely listener supported. We've certainly had the opportunity to sell your attention for our own financial gain. That is something we cannot yet bring ourselves to do, folks. So we hope you appreciate that. And if you do appreciate that and you enjoy the show, you find yourself being edified or educated or entertained every single week, please head over to patreon.com/CCNT. We've got bonus episodes every single week, as well as a bunch of other fun rewards. And if you've been sitting there and you've been humming and hawing about supporting the show, please, now's your time to jump in. And first, let us know that you appreciate the show, you appreciate what we're doing. We get all warm and fuzzy when we see a new Patreon supporter jumping in there. And hey, we've been giving shout outs over on the bonus episodes, so please consider doing that. It's the only way we can continue to do the show, and not just financially, but also just for our own morale. Also, if you already support the show financially, or you just can't quite do it yet, please leave a rating and a review on iTunes. That's super important. We've gotten some great rating and reviews lately, and that is jumping us up in the charts. So that is a huge help. If you have not yet done it, go to iTunes or Spotify or Stitcher, wherever you listen, and leave a positive rating and review. We appreciate that so much. But more than anything, if you want to know a way you can help us out, find your friends who are still getting their news from the mainstream, grab them by the cage and shake it.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! Don't ever silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
It's gotta be biblical.
That's right. Thank you so much, folks. Remember, head over to patreon.com/CCNT. We're going to be finishing up talking about this story. We're going to be talking about the Arizona professor fired for promoting QAnon. We're going to be talking about pharma and DARPA and quantum evolution and a couple more flippy updates over there. So head over to patreon.com/CCNT. Thanks for listening to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk, and make sure to tune in next week. But until then, think outside the cage.